Z has made a significant change to the game after a series of smaller quality of life updates, and this one makes huge changes. Not only is there a new game mode, but there's a new move, and a reworked Mahito that completely erases his first awakening and jumps him straight to his second. This video will go over every single change made in the updates before discussing their impacts on the game and my overall thoughts. But before that, make sure you hit the subscribe button to be notified of even more JJS updates. Now, let's get into the video. Mahito's awakening now has a new move, which is called Crushing Rushdown. The awakening activation method for Mahito was reworked, and instead of just automatically awakening, you do the Idle Transfiguration Black Flash. A new game mode called Roulette was added, and it is a work in progress right now. Heavy emphasis on that term because it's ridiculously broken, and I'll get to that later. A Join Friends tab was added to the game mode selection screen. Image blocks were added to build mode. 3 new logic blocks, which are moveset blocks, clear blocks, and teleport blocks, were added. 6 new settings were added to private servers, allowing you to edit gravity, walk speed, jump power, destruction block size, knockback multipliers, damage multipliers, and no stun. 8 new emotes were added. A finisher to Manji Kick was added. A new variant for body repel was added, which can be used by pressing 4 and 3. A new performance setting called Destruction Interpolation was added. Vending machines had their functionality added back, meaning you can spend $5 to buy a drink that's purely cosmetic from them. I will say that the prompt is really difficult to make appear, so you have to move your camera a bit if you want to buy something. You can hear the voices of players inside of the domain outside of it. 2 additional spawns were added to the ranked map. Clash 2 was reanimated, the emote Rocks was improved, and the unlicensed catch game was slightly improved. The icons for game modes were apparently changed to better reflect what they're for, but I don't see it, so either I'm blind or this change doesn't exist. The speed decrease before the impact for widespread strikes was removed. The speed of Soulfire was significantly increased. Reserve balls now bounce off surfaces. Manji Kick's range counter was reanimated. Melee attacks can be feinted with Yuji's R special. Niue is uncounterable. Stockpile hits grounded players. The base awakening for Mahito, aka the one with Idle Transfiguration, was removed, though I wouldn't expect this to last because of community backlash. Logic blocks can be multi-selected. Build mode parts now spawn in a grid set to your increment size instead of absolute position, whatever that means. The speed of open after the startup was increased. Adaptation heals you for a little bit on hit. Chain Whip is now used by being in blade mode while using Focus Strike. Switching awakenings with Megumi no longer drains awakening. Curse Strikes now glides forever until it hits a player or the ground. Network usage for destruction was slightly improved. The in-depth guide was moved to the main options category. The hotkeys for switching edit modes and build mode were changed to R, T, and Y. Fear Breaker breaks walls. The save menu for build mode was redesigned, letting you change the name of save slots. A confirmation prompt to clear all parts button was added. The thickness of the selection outline for build mode was decreased. The startup for Shadow Storm was decreased. Toad's variant now deals damage by slamming the opponent into the ground and then slamming them up with the rebound. Mahito's gauntlets are now your skin color. Max Elephant not having end lag was fixed. Issues with ragdoll canceling and bursting, which I assume is the bug where they share the cooldown, were fixed. Finally, there's other bug fixes that I didn't mention, but really don't need to be mentioned. I'll put them on screen while I say this, and you can pause the video to read through them, but they're nothing game-changing, more so just the way things are supposed to be. Alright, starting with my thoughts on the update, I'll mostly try to keep things brief, but there's so much to say that some of it might end up getting its own video. One of these things that are absolutely getting its own video is Z's decision to remove Mahito's first awakening entirely and replace it with his second awakening. While I'll go more in depth in a future video, my basic thoughts on it right now are that it's a very interesting direction to take things, but maybe not a great one. And it's definitely one that a lot of the community does not like. See, Mahito's first awakening was certainly underwhelming to an extent. It was able to do amazing in 1v1s, but got absolutely screwed in any kind of team fights, and it was very reliant on force grab as a whole, with everything else either requiring you to combo into it with force grab, or just being kind of mid like Joe Splitter. However, it's not like his second awakening is anything too crazy either, since Widespread Strikes is still a move that just never hits, while the other two just kind of fit a similar niche as force grab, in that they're just free damage that can also combo into stuff. Winning a conditional with Mahito's first awakening was also fun for some people too, and his awakening was unique too, so I can absolutely see why people are upset with the decision. But it might be a bit more complicated than that, which I need a whole other video to explain, so I won't. Just know that it's kind of a bad move, but it does help simplify Mahito a bit and make him less of a pain for people to play with, which can appeal to a lot of JJS players. Now, As for Roulette, this is just a complete mess. The concept behind it is great, but it's so ridiculously bug-ridden that it stops being fun pretty quick. Not to mention that some of the game mode choices can be unfun at times. To quickly explain my thoughts, Brain Swap is fun in how chaotic it is at first, but gets really unfun since it is an elimination game mode where you just have to sit there and wait for people to finish fighting, which can take ages because of a bug where people can go into negative lives and just never die. First to 20 is decent, though it heavily favors some characters over others to a heavy extent. Not that there's anything Z can do about it. Sorcerers vs Curses, which is just sort of a zombie game mode, ends in 5 seconds a lot of the time because the curses have pretty zoinked damage numbers, and it is like 20v1 most of the time. And that's about it. I'm not sure where other game modes like Capture Gojo or End of Journey, which is the placeholder name for Sorcerers vs Curses. Maybe it'll get added later, but the most important part of all of this is that Roulette is just a really buggy mess, and while yes, it is a work in progress, that work in progress title is heavy on the shoulders of Roulette because there's so much stuff to be done in fixing it. Now, let's talk about crushing Rushdown, which in my opinion, is just an overall decent move. It's a free combo starter, and I haven't seen any way to avoid it besides already being out of range, so you can basically use it in the same way you use face splits. The move itself grabs a target before doing a little rush with them, this rush actually damaging people if it hits them, and then throwing the target into the air, from which it can be comboed with face splits or other moves if you so choose. There's a really stupid bug where if the rush is interrupted, you just start running forward quickly, and I hope it gets fixed. But as for how the move is without taking into account bugs, it's fine. It makes his Awakening even more of a menace in 1v1s, and it can still fight teamers with the rush. It's a decent move overall. The body repel variant is not getting too much spotlight here, and it's because it's useless unless I'm missing something. It's absolute garbage, and what it does is your standard body repel, but when shooting at the worm, you travel with it, and you can't aim the worm either. This process uses up both Focus Strike and body repel, which is a heavy cooldown cost, and as a whole, it's just kind of useless. There's no argument to be made about using it to get in close when you hit someone with body repel, since not only do you make the move harder to hit by making it unaimable, but you can also just hit someone and turn your camera backwards to drag them towards you for the same result. It's a variant that has no reason to exist besides fun, and while it does sound bad, it kind of is. There's plenty of casuals out there who can have fun with this move, and hey, who am I to rain on their parade? Reserve balls bouncing off surfaces shouldn't be a huge deal. At the end of the day, you're limited to shooting one, so you can't pull off any insane undodgeable Brawl Stars Rico stuff. However, a hit is a hit, and it's undeniable that the change makes it so much easier to hit reserve balls if the conditions are right. It's just a straight buff to a mediocre move, and there's nothing wrong with that. Plus, in Hikari's domain, it becomes a near guaranteed hit since it'll just keep bouncing on the walls. The speed decrease on widespread strikes getting removed is pretty useless. Even after this update, the move is trivially easy to dodge, and while the update makes nothing worse, it also doesn't do anything big for the move. As for Toad getting actual damage on its Nue variant, it's nice, though I don't think it'll increase its usage that much. It'll at the very least make it less punishing to go for style combos with it, but the damage from the move is so insignificant that sweats are almost certainly still going to use a normal Toad every time anyways. Not to mention you can still air combo by uppercutting into Divine Dogs. It's not a huge deal though, and overall the update's good, letting people use it with less of a cost if they want to have fun. As for Megumi getting to switch between modes with zero awakening cost, this is an absolutely huge buff that will also encourage people to use his Awakening rather than just going for Mahoraga the first chance they get. It makes it so that you get punished less for pulling off his insane combos, and lets him stand on the same level as other Awakenings, as long as you have the skill to know how to actually use it. On another Megumi note, adaptation being able to heal you is pretty neat. The healing makes adaptation even more viable, and while it won't fully negate a combo if you use it on an M1 or something, it'll still negate the damage you take from most moves, or just a basic M1 string if your opponent has no moves to follow up with. And with how spammable adaptation is, that's huge. Not to mention the fact you can probably do this in a Sukuna domain to just full heal. Adaptation is really viable as an alternative to World Slash now, and I'd say we're at a point where every Mahoraga move has a purpose. Even Takedown is fine as a desperate last play move for getting back your Awakening, and since the cooldown was reduced, you can do it quite a bit. It's a good call in my opinion. As for Nue becoming uncounterable, it makes sense. It's such an easy move to counter that I can see why it'd become uncounterable, and counters could fully shut it down since it has way too much windup before the actual hit, making it really difficult to confirm even if you try comboing into it. Stockpile being able to hit grounded people on the other hand also sort of makes sense. The move would frequently be used to hit people on wake up, and really all this update does is remove that weird period where you're just waiting for your target to get off the ground, as well as make it impossible to use Shutter Doors or Manji Kick to negate that whole thing. Either way, people would still uppercut into it for that extra ragdoll damage, and this won't make any huge changes. I like open getting its speed after the windup increased. It doesn't make it harder to interrupt, but it does remove that weird waiting period that just felt way too long, and I'm personally fine with it. There's still enough time for you to get to a spot to dodge, or time your counter, so it won't cause any problems, but it'll also make open less of a distraction to the flow of a fight. Soulfire getting the speed increase is neat, though it can be janky at times, and it's not going to make a terribly huge difference, but it will make it harder to punish a Mahito for using the move, which I think is fine. Last thing I want to talk about is Yuji getting the Feint melee attacks, and honestly, this won't be too useful, but there are some really niche cases where it might work, such as feinting a down slam and stuff like that. It's cool either way, and that's all that really matters. It won't make him overpowered or anything, which is good, and it's just a neat mechanic. As a whole, this update has a lot to unpack despite the people criticizing it. Outside of the controversial Mahito change, all of the other changes he made are pretty good, and the new build mode stuff, while not things I'll personally be using, seem like they'll be great for people who like to build stuff. It's a neat update in my opinion, and personally I like it. Anyways, that's all for the video. If you enjoyed watching, then make sure to subscribe for even more JGS content. I'm Noob Eternally, hope you have a great day, and bye.